Bill Alcoholic. Welcome home. Look at you. What the hell are we doing here? How'd we end up here? We're not supposed to be here, are we? We're people that normally would not mix, and we're mixing. So God bless the committee for putting this thing on, right? You can't hear me? Okay. I'm pretty loud. This is my wife complaining. So God bless the committee. Well, the first thing that happened, we got off the airplane and we got stranded at the airport. Because Michael here was at the Cleveland airport. So I called him and he said, "Oh, I'm stuck in traffic." He was at the wrong airport. We are not organized. Yet here we are. Here we are. 88 years. 88 years. I was born in 1947. My life overlapped the life of Dr. Bob and Bill Wilson. My father got sober in 1954. So on top of all my other problems, I was raised in one of those AA homes. I don't recommend it. There's nothing worse than living in a place with two people with clear eyes that know exactly what's going on in your head. You know? That's called hell. You know, there's some people in AA that talk about how we've lost our edge, that we used to be more successful than we are now. I think Alcoholics Anonymous is alive and well and as effective as it's ever been. I think we're in great shape for the shape we're in. And there's a lot of changes going on now, isn't there? This is an exciting time. You know, if this organization goes on through the eons, us here will be considered the pioneers, the people in the first 100 years. We're still young. This is still the flying blind period. We're still trying to figure it out. The demographic has changed. What about all these young people that are coming here? What the hell's the matter with them? You know? So we're politically incorrect. I think the best thing that all of us as members of AA can do is keep it a safe place. This is Alcoholics Anonymous. This should be a safe place. Welcome home. Welcome home. Welcome home. It's a real honor to be here. When I got the phone call, I said, finally. Finally. Now I'm here and I'm scared to death. Clawing my way up the AA corporate ladder. If there is a hierarchy, I bet it's here in Akron. It's got to be here, right? I've been looking for it all weekend. And I got left at the airport. I think the whole online thing that happened at the pandemic has given the world more access to Alcoholics Anonymous than it's ever had. This is a net positive thing. This is not going to go away, nor should it go away. Remember when it happened, and none of us didn't like it. Like, oh my God, what's going to happen? What's going to happen to the newcomer? Same as Bill Wilson when he realized that people got sober just by reading the book. He didn't know. Wow, that's incredible. I was just trying to raise money, you know. Then we get on the whole online thing, and people are getting so. There were several people I met today that I've never been live with, right? Remember how did any of you relax into it and get really into the whole Zoom thing? You know, like you just relax into it. And pretty soon when it came back live again, and I thought, man, I got to get dressed and get in the car and drive down to that place with all those stinky people, you know? I mean, Teresa's wearing a mask because she didn't get the memo, right? I wear a mask on airplanes and in airports now. I'm scared. I'm a liver transplant survivor. I don't want to die. And you walk into a place like this, you just start slobbering on each other, you know? And I just thought, God, I hope I don't die, you know? It's like, isn't it great being live again? It's just great being live again. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. And this is the hotbed of enthusiasm here, isn't it? This is zealot central, you know? People that are just a little weird about it, you know? And actually live it and stuff. And some of the talks today, you know, Vivian, you know, out of the ashes, the phoenix rises. What wonderful stories, you know? The depth of degradation and rise up out of it, become a working member of society. Some years ago, I was sitting with a big-time Indian guru in my little search for spirituality, and I was very impressed to be with this man. And a friend of mine was attached to him, and we went to hear him speak, and we went back and sat in this little room. It was like just the three of us, and I was very impressed to be sitting there, so I get impressed. I start talking, and I'm babbling away, and this guy looks at me, and he starts laughing at me. And I said, what are you laughing at? And he goes, I just love you alcoholics and drug addicts. I go, why is that? He goes, the rest of them out there are trying to get awakened. You're just trying to figure out what the hell happened. You know? Isn't that true? It's like, what the hell happened? You know? Think about what happened to Bill Wilson. We heard about it today, you know. He had an experience, and you can argue about what that experience was, and whether it was real or not, or a fantasy, or drug-induced, or whatever, but you can't argue the fact that the man's life never was ever the same again. That happened to me. It's never been the same since March the 27th, 1985. It took a while to realize that. Did any of you see Gail's presentation yesterday? Now, I know Gail believes that Alcoholics Anonymous was a gift to her, but what a gift she is to us, isn't she? Huh? Yeah. I've heard that thing several times, and I watched it yesterday. It was like I'd never heard it again. And one of the attractive things about it is her excitement about doing it, you know. And Bill Wilson chuckling at her, you know. Peter's talk, I've heard Peter a bunch of times. We've been together around the country. What passion. What passion, huh? That's just passion. This raw passion. I love that, don't you? It's just passionate. I think those of us who go around and speak, I think the best we are is when we're cheerleaders for AA. And you can tell I'm a cheerleader for Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm just a little weird about it, you know? And my kids, I texted my kids and I said, I'm speaking at Founders Day, the 88th anniversary of Alcoholics Anonymous. My daughter texted back, good for you, Daddy. She doesn't get it, you know. She got raised in an AA house. One time I walked through the living room. She was 10 years old, and she's on the phone. And I hear her say, well, have you done your inventory? And I stopped and I said, who are you talking to? She says, Owen. I said, good, keep it up. Because he doesn't listen to me. You know. I was a surfer and a biker and a tough guy. And I rarely went to the beach. My motorcycle rarely ran, and I was afraid to fight. But I looked really good. I had a chrome Nazi helmet for a hat and a primary chain for a belt and black greasy Levi's big black boots with chains around them. I've got tattoos all over me. But I had a clip-on earring because I didn't want to hurt myself. My biker nickname is Horny. I have it tattooed here on my arm, and it's misspelled. It's Horney. Horny. With an exclamation mark for emphasis. That's pretty much all you need to know about me, isn't it? Any of you go to the old timers meeting? Bobby, 85 years old and on fire. On fire. When I grow up, I want to be like Bobby, man. You know, I'm only 75. I got some time to go. Hope I make it, you know. So by the time I was 17, I was a bad drunk in high school. I had a big jacket and a slouch and a sneer and a foul mouth and a bad attitude, and I carried a gun. And I'm from the mean streets of Palos Verdes. There's no gangs in Palos Verdes. Nobody was looking for me. I was a gang of one, you know. Yeah. Now, all of us, when we tell our story, even if it's just sharing in a meeting, or, you know, all of us talk about how we didn't feel part of, we felt separate, and we felt odd and strange, and sometimes we'll even say things like, I had alcoholic thinking long before I ever drank, as if there's such a thing as special alcoholic thinking. You know what the professional community says about us, even Tebow? That we are emotionally immature. And we hear that and we go, no! I have special thinking. I have alcoholic thinking and it's never going away. And you need to consider that when you're dealing with me. Never tell an alcoholic what to do. We don't like to be told what to do. If you tell us what to do, we'll just do the exact opposite. Never tell us what to do. Now, when you're 14 or 15, that can be appropriate, maybe even cute. When you're 40, it's just stupid. I don't think we're that uniquely neurotic. I just think we're emotionally immature, don't you? I mean, most of us started drinking and using or whatever we were doing at 14, 15, 16, 17, somewhere in there usually. Some of us got a little early starts, we're more advanced, you know. Teresa did it from the womb, you know, and others of us were late bloomers, like around 19, or I went to college and started drinking, you know, but we get here, I got here at 37 years old, and on a good day, I had the emotional development of a rather disturbed 16-year-old. And I look like I'm grown up, but I'm not. And I'm going to grow up now, and the chances of me doing that and looking good are really slim. There's going to be some bad behavior, because the only way you grow up, in my experience, is through experience. You can't intellectually figure out, well, I'm immature and I'm self-centered. I'll just stop that now, you know. I think what happens is we make complete fools of ourselves in public situations and have to go back and make amends, and then the transformation occurs. Because we didn't do it when we were 14, 15, and 16 because we were loaded, right? I'm 8 or 9 years sober, maybe 8 years sober. I'm coaching a bunch of 9-year-olds, including my son, on soccer, and I got escorted off the soccer field for going after the referee. Well, he was wrong. Now, when you're 8 or 9 years sober and you're being escorted off the field, you know you screwed up. You're going out, oh God, I did it again. Because we all wear the clown suit, right? And I keep mine in the closet, dust it off, you never know, you know. I was coaching a bunch of 9-year-olds right around the same time. My sponsor remembers this story clearly, who's sitting right here watching me. And they were losing about 5 or 6 to nothing at the half, and so I gave him a lecture on personal pride. You got to start knocking people over. You can't just allow them to crush you like this. You got to go out there and hurt somebody. You'll never survive this if you allow yourself to be defeated at this level. And Mr. Cleveland said we could hit people, you know. They went out there, got a couple more goals scored against them, and I had my Harley parked out in the basketball courts because I'm a badass, right? And I just walked off the field and left him. I was just disgusted with him, you know. Let him hitchhike home, you know. And I jumped on the Harley and I burned rubber through the basketball courts and roared off down the street and ran out of gas. It's hard to look cool when you're walking down the street with your leather jacket and your helmet, you know. And I went home. I wasn't far from the house. I walked home and I called my sponsor. And I told him what happened. And he said, Bill, it's children's sports. And you know what my response was? You don't understand. And I'm 45 years old. I'm sponsoring half the South Bay and speaking around and telling you how to work the steps and, you know. I'm working diligently to make a name for myself in an anonymous organization. And when you got to walk back out there on that field and apologize to everybody, including your own children, and go back to that school and you stop doing that. You know, it hurts. So I think this whole feeling of separation that we had when we were kids, we felt odd, we think that's unique, like it's an aspect of alcoholism. I think it's an aspect of being human, don't you? All of us feel that way. All of us sat in elementary school and looked across the room and thought we'd be better if we looked more like Jimmy or more athletic like Sam or whatever it might be. We all compare. We all do that. It's a human. This is about humanity. We're just human. We're not that special. And then alcoholism happens when we drink. Then it kicks in, right? Because we find the solution and we trade in everything for the solution. Whereas the average person gets sick, you know, and then they don't drink for a while because that was an awful experience. You and I get sick and we go, well, we got to lean into that. You know. We'll work through it, you know, and so I think the whole idea behind the drinking thing, if I remember correctly, was to have a couple of pops and get out of the house and go have some fun and enjoy life because we feel we have that sense of unicity. We're oneness now. It comes together, you know, and we go out there. And I ended up naked in my living room watching religious television, taking notes. I'm having sex, menage a uno. There's no one else in the room, you know. So I don't know what the hell happened to the party. Next time somebody walks in one of your rooms and says, well, I'm just a party kind of guy, ask them, how many other people were at the party you just left? A lot of us end up alone, don't we? We're bar drinkers. I'm an extrovert. I'm an out there guy, and I was alone. Nobody was knocking on my door asking if Billy could come out and play. You know, it just wasn't like that at all. And it happened very quickly. 17, bad drunk in high school. 22, I'm in the Oregon State Mental Institution. I needed a rest, you know, and I was in the mental institution in Salem, Oregon. I had met her. She lived up there, and it was the 60s, so we went up there to grow our own. And I was in San Francisco during the Summer of Love. I was actually there, and I'm sorry I missed it. I was there. There's evidence that I was there, and but I was in the mental institution in Salem that Ken Kesey worked on when he wrote Cuckoo's Nest. Yeah. This is the highlight of the Drunkalogue. Some people went to college. I don't know how. I think the people that went to college and stuff aren't really alcoholics. Don't you? How do you do that? Well, I test really well. Really, I couldn't even find the place. When I drink, everything stops. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't do anything. I didn't accomplish anything. My life stopped dead for 20 years. And they filmed that movie on the ward I was on. So the next time you see that movie, think of me. I'm not bragging. It's just all I got. This is it, right? So I came back down to California after the Oregon thing. I was running with an outlaw motorcycle gang. I'm sticking needles in my arm every day. I'm drinking like a fish. I'm married. I got 2 little kids. I'm not coming home to that family. And they're on welfare, and it was awful. It was awful. Just awful. One of the wonderful things about Alcoholics Anonymous is we laugh at the tragedies and cry at the successes. And the reason we laugh at the tragedies is because it's not like that anymore. So the way you catch alcoholism is by laughing, because they don't get this down at the Rotary Club. It's like, I came back down to California. My sober dad, who got sober in 54, when he died in 99, he was 45 years sober. And my sober dad let me live in his garage and gave me a job in his little machine shop in El Segundo, and I tried cleaning up my act, which is difficult when you don't want to stop drinking. You got to quit doing all the hard drugs, and you got to quit taking acid, because normal people have two-way communication with each other. And with LSD, you just don't need the other person. So what you do is you drink on the weekends. You can't drink during the week. The reason you can't drink during the week is because normal people have jobs that they go to days in a row. And when I drink, I don't show up no matter what. And so you just smoke pot during the week because it's green and it's from God and it's not really drugs. And because I don't know about you, but the impact of your personality on me is devastating. I cannot do you. I need something in me at all times to cushion the blow of you on me. I just don't get along well. I've got rage. I'm angry, and I don't know that it's fear. I don't know any of that. So I met another woman because it's a group effort getting me through life. It takes a village, and there are volunteers out there, and we have a program for them. And I met her, and we set up housekeeping and tried to make a life for ourselves, and we got married, and I had another couple of kids. And at 37 years old, 15 years after the mental institution, I lived in the house with this woman, the second wife, and these 2 little kids. My daughter was 3, my son was 4 months old, and I had no emotional connection to another living human being. And I don't know that. I don't know that. I don't know that I'm not connected. I've never been connected, so how would I know that there was anything missing? I'm not aware that I'm not connected. I mean, you're there with me. I'm standing there with you. You're in my way all the time. But I am not connected. So on one particular night, I'm up all night. You ever been up all night? You know what it feels like? I'm sure I'm talking to the choir here. When that sun comes up, that's not a happy moment, because I'm a vampire now. And the sun comes up, this is sad. And I know it's going to be another miserable day in a long, long line of miserable days. And this extrovert, this bar drinker, this good time boy is alone in his living room, sitting in his alcoholic chair, drinking whatever he can find that's left in the house. My little daughter, 3-year-old, got up and came out in the living room and was happy to see that Daddy was up, and she crawled up in my lap, and it just broke my heart. Something cut through the fog, and it just broke my heart. And I think what I knew was that I'm not a father, I'm not a son, I'm not a husband, I'm a nothing. No one gets to AA with a lot of self-esteem. And those moments of clarity, I think, are moments of depression and sadness, brokenheartedness. So like any good gangster, I called my mom. And this is a woman that had been in Al-Anon for 30 years by that time. They are organized and prepared and focused. And she came and got me inside of a half an hour before I took the nap. All right. I don't remember what I said to her on the phone. I really don't remember, but I think it was help. I need help. And she took me to a place in Costa Mesa called Starting Point, and I spent 35 days in there. While I was in there, they made me wear a sign around my neck. We had to make the sign. We made it in crafts. It was right after relaxation therapy, you know. It was a little rectangular piece of cardboard with a string that went through it, and it said, "I am not a counselor." Because evidently there was some confusion about that. You know? And after 35 days, they turned me loose. They just let us loose, don't they? Go forth, multiply. You know, it's like we're okay now. And where do we end up? Yeah, here. This is intimidating. What we did to the newcomers last night, that's not right, what we do to newcomers. Like, oh, come on up here and get your book. Jesus. Every time I see one of those, I want to go get the guy and just come with me. I'll take care of you. You know? Don't forget about these people. You'll get used to them. You know, they get all excited and stuff. Yeah. So it was a Friday when they let me out, April of '85. I was a month, 35, 36 days sober, which is a raw experience. Remember it? Can you remember? You know, everything's weird, and sober's weird. And I walked into the Ilano Club in Hermosa Beach, California on a Friday night. I went to a meeting the same day I got out because I knew I was going to drink again, and I really didn't want to. At least that's what I think was going on. I was a little frightened. And I walked up to this clubhouse on a Friday night, and it's Friday night in Hermosa Beach. The meeting is called the Gong Show. Everybody's dressed up trying to hook up. People said this probably wasn't really an AA meeting. I went to it for 20 years, you know, and it was not right. And the thing was, all the Harleys were parked out front, which I thought was kind of interesting. I wasn't expecting that. The meetings I went to in the 50s with my parents did not include that. And the room was packed. Who knew that an AA meeting would be full on a summer night in Hermosa Beach? Why would it be full? And there was nowhere to sit. And I stood in the back of the room. And the first lucky thing happened to me when I walked into AA, which I think is just pure luck. I just liked it. I just liked it. I thought, this is weird. And I'm an old hippie from the 60s, and weird has always attracted me. And after 38 years, I find you all deliciously strange. You know, it's a never-ending font of weirdness, you know? It just never ends. And I started laughing. Nicknames are flying around. They're hooting and hollering at each other. One guy got up to share. They hooted so much he couldn't get any. He just went and sat back down. Evidently, this guy was very well loved. And that's how we love them, isn't it? And I left home. I drove home that night, and I thought to myself, this may not be so bad. It was not what I was expecting. Now, someone else could have walked in, and I'm sure has walked into a room like that and just scared the living daylights out of them, and they left. For me, it was perfect. And there's a lot of different doorways into AA, isn't there? Each meeting is autonomous for a really good reason. There's a really good reason. Some of the meetings that we don't like that we think are therapy sessions, somebody would walk in there and feel comfortable and sit down and 2 or 3 years later look for something more once they get assimilated and acclimatized. So, my Hermosa Beach men stag is where the men are men and the sheep are nervous. Work the steps or die, mother. That'd be us, right? So I sponsor a lot of guys in there, so I know how really macho it really is. It's not really what it looks like from the outside. But there's different doorways into AA. I used to be a bit judgmental, if you can believe that. And I've lost a lot of that because I don't know what you need. I think I know, but not really. I don't know what you need. There's only one program in AA. There's not a different program for every person in AA. There's one program. I believe that strongly. It's the 12 steps. But each one of us has our own unique experience with it. And it gets delivered by somebody that's there just for us. There's somebody that needs to hear your voice, not mine. And I think that's how it works. So the second lucky thing happened to me after a couple of weeks of banging around the rooms. I was told I needed to get one of these sponsor things. And I asked this guy, I asked him if he would help me. And I remember it was at nighttime outside the Alano Club there. We're from California, we have Alano clubs. It means Alcoholics Anonymous clubhouse where weirdness happens on a regular basis, all right? And I've gone into clubs. You people don't call them Alano, but you have clubs, triangle clubs, different clubs. I've walked into places before where I've seen an actual sign on the wall that says, "We don't care how you do it in California." Isn't that awful? We're just trying to help. So I asked this guy to help me, and he actually did, which doesn't always happen. And what he said to me, he says, go home. He said several things to me, but what he said to me, one particular thing was, go home and read the doctor's opinion. Make notes in the margin of what you agree with and what you don't. Be at my house Thursday at 5 o'clock, and we'll discuss it. So we talk a lot about bottoms here, right? Hitting bottom. Even in sobriety, we hit bottoms. And I think what the bottom is the collapse of the alibi system, right? The alcoholic life seems like the only normal one because we fabricate a reality, and that collapses for just a window. There's a window of opportunity. The door opens a little bit, and if we jump in there quickly, because it comes back, the defense mechanism recreates itself. The ego is very strong, right? So I just said, okay, which was not my normal way. And I went home and I read my assignment. I make my little notes in the margin. And I showed up at the stranger's house Thursday at 5 o'clock. And he let me in the door and he sat me in his living room and he sat across from me and he did not trust me that I'd read it. And he had me sit there and read it to him out loud. Class. Him and I have done sponsorship workshops around a good part of the world over the years. Rule number 1 when you're sponsoring people, make sure they read the book. Don't trust them. Read it with them. It'll probably help you out. All right? If I have to read War Fever Ran High in that New England town one more time. And now I'm doing it on Zoom. Some things don't change. And each week I went to his house and we read another chapter in the book. And he took me on some field trips, took me on 12-step calls. It was back in the 80s. That was still happening a lot. And we went and visited people in hospitals and people I didn't know. Why would you bring me, the stranger, to meet this guy? Because he was bringing the newcomer to entertain his buddy that was waiting to have surgery, And I didn't know any of that. But I just went. And really what happened, I just kind of stuck my hand in his back pocket and followed him around. I didn't have anything else going on, you know. And I really believe to this day the most spiritual thing you hear in AA is get in the car. Well, where are we going? What do you care? Get in the car. What's on your social calendar? You know. Well, who else is going? I don't want to go with any weird people. We're all weird. Just get in the car. You know. It'll be okay. You won't die, more than likely. Could be. You know. Sometimes it's dangerous, huh? You know. What a grand adventure. You know. I'm really happy I got sober in a time where 12-step calls were still happening. I can regale you with a lot of stories about that. And that'll change your life. I mean, I've lived in Los Angeles all my life. All my life I've lived in LA. And until I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I never went down to Skid Row or Watts or South Central or anything. Why would you go there? That's where those people live, you know? And in AA, you go everywhere, man. We show up, you know? And that'll change your life. That'll make your life larger. Your life experience gets enhanced. It isn't just not drinking. Everything gets brighter, more colorful, a little scary, kind of dangerous, you know, just right on the edge all the time. Isn't that what we're really looking for? Don't we really want to live life? And none of it have I had to do by myself. Somebody always went with me. He called me one night and he goes, Jesus is drunk in Wilmington and he needs us. Just think about that statement. I mean, I've taken a lot of acid and no one ever said anything like that to me. And at the end, he just giggled, you know. And, you know, I'm on the other end of the phone going, what is wrong with this guy? And he came and got me, and we went to Wilmington. We picked up Jesus and took him to the Alano Club, you know. And he was a mess, you know. So it says in our book that the only thing that's going to save us, the only thing that's going to keep us sober, give us a life with some purpose and maybe some intimacy in relationships, which we don't know anything about. We think it's sex and it's not. The only thing that's going to do that for us is the maintenance of our spiritual condition. Right? Step 10, maintenance of our spiritual condition. So the first job I have in AA is to get a spiritual condition so that I can then maintain it. Because when I got here, I didn't have one of those. It also says that we're going to rest on these things called laurels, and that we shouldn't do that. And what's a laurel? A laurel is a past achievement. I didn't have any of those. So I got to get some past achievements so I can rest on them and find out why that's not a good idea. So I got some work to do, right? And I got to thinking when the pandemic hit, I got to thinking about spiritual condition. And I'm at that time 30-some years sober, and I'm thinking I have a spiritual condition. I believe I have one of those. And it's been a rather circuitous route, an interesting story on its own. But I think I have one. Well, what's it made up of? These 12 steps. We've got some great step mechanics in AA, people that really can talk to us. I've learned a lot from people like my dear, dear friend Charlie Parker. God bless his soul. And broke my heart. And but what is the end result? I got to thinking, what is the end result when you work these steps and you do it with some diligence? You know, you really get into it, really do it, and maybe do it several times. What's the outcome of that? Well, the very first thing, what's spiritual condition made up of? The very first thing that this guy wanted to know from me when I walked in his living room is whether I thought I was powerless over drugs and alcohol. Now, they just said that it was alcohol because they didn't want us to run screaming down the street. 38 years later, I think it's everything, don't you? I've yet to find anything I have any power over. I mean, I can be handed some stuff and then I can apply myself to it, but I'm not the author of any of this that's coming into my life. It's just unfolding right in front of me. I think I'm utterly and completely and absolutely powerless. We talk a lot about acceptance around here, and I believe that if we really get at a visceral or gut level how powerless we are, acceptance just happens. It doesn't mean I have to like it. I mean, I live in such a fashion, and what I believe is that things outside myself need to be different in order for me to be okay. And they don't change, and I suffer. I've lost complete control over the geopolitical situation in the world. Look at it. Yeah. 3 years or so ago, I shut off the TV news. I was not emotionally stable enough to deal with it. Doesn't matter what side you're on. I just, I don't live there. I don't live there, and it doesn't belong in Alcoholics Anonymous either. You know? No one from Washington has ever called me and asked me what I thought should be happening. You know, I am not involved in any of the decision making. I do not live there. I live here with you. This is where I live. This is my life. This is where I live. I'm powerless over all of that. I've lost complete control over you. I talk to you incessantly about how if you were a little bit different, the two of us would be a hell of a lot happier. And you insist upon living your own life, and it pisses me off at my core. I've lost complete control of you. Right? Want to find out how spiritual I am? Ask my wife, Karen. You know? And I look out into the universe, I look out into nature, and I determine that some things are good and some things are bad. Do you know that that morality doesn't exist in nature? We create that. I judge that some stuff is good and some stuff is bad. The truth is, you know what the truth is? It just is. It's neither good nor bad. The lion eats the lamb every time. And we have so much trouble with that, we make up fantasies that someday in the future the lion will lay down with the lamb. I bet you if that occurs, that lamb will be nervous for eternity. You know? It's the nature of the lion to eat the lamb. There's no morality in it. This is the source of all the suffering in my life, is my judgment, my moral game that I'm playing the way things should be. There's something inherently wrong in the universe. There's an injustice that needs to be repaired. I had a guy tell me one time on this journey, and I'm working through some of this stuff, and I talked about hope. He goes, hope is a problem. I go, what do you mean hope's a problem? We all need some hope. He says, hope is a problem. Hope tells me that someday in the future, things will be okay. But the present moment is incorrect, and that's not possible. The present moment is this. And what is God's will? We talk a lot about what is God's will. Is this some mystery? Isn't God's will what's happening right now? And I have trouble with right now. I'm looking for an alternative. And there is none. And I suffer. I suffer from that. I don't have to like it, but I have to accept it. And the only way I can accept it is realize I have no power or control over any of it. Don't have to like it, but I have to accept it. If I can do that first, so the first pillar of spiritual condition seems to be powerless. Now, whatever mystical path you go down, whether it's Eastern or Western, whatever form of religion, they all talk about this, that we are not running the show. So the second step says that I need to align myself with the power. Some people will tell you that you have to believe in God to do Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't believe that's true. I think all you need to know about God is it's not you. It's like, you know, that's it, you know. One of my favorite guys is Alan Watts. He said something really cool. I think it's just really profound, and I misquote it, but I like the way I misquote it, so I'm going to... It's the Bill Cleveland variation of Alan Watts. If that's even legal, I'm not sure about that. But he said, true faith is not knowing and having that be okay. What I always thought is I have a belief mechanism that I've cobbled together or it's been given to me, and I have faith that this belief mechanism is correct. Watts is saying something much deeper, having no belief mechanism and having that be okay, that all is well. They asked the Dalai Lama, what's the ultimate spiritual truth? He said, all is well. Then he pauses as you absorb that, because I don't think all is well, do you? You know? And then he repeats it very slowly. All is well. I have trouble with that, but I think that's true. Because this is all I've got, is what's happening right now, the present moment right now. So the second step is about being open-minded, right? Isn't it? Bill Wilson wrote a lot about this, about being open-minded. You know, that I'm not running the show. You know, I have to let go of certain beliefs that I've cobbled together somehow, but maybe what I can just do is have an open mind, start listening, let some stuff in, let it leak in. I had a big debate with him one time, my sponsor, about this. Everybody knows there's no God. Everybody knows that. I mean, this is just BS, right? There's no God. And I'm arguing with him again, and he put his hand on my chest and he says, Bill, we don't need you here. You need us. Resign from the debating society. And I drove home thinking, this guy's difficult. And this is not therapy, right? It's not, you know, Alcoholics Anonymous is not good psychotherapy. If it is, it's bad psychotherapy. It's not about me at all, really, which is sad, you know. The therapists were always interested in what I thought and what I felt about what I thought, you know, but here that's not really the case, right? So then the third step becomes operational. Now, the third step's interesting. The third step says, I'm going to make a decision to turn my life and will over to clearly what already has it anyway. I think it was nice of them to lead me to believe that I actually have some say in the matter. You know, well, I've been withholding myself from the totality of all things long enough. I'm going to acquiesce now and allow you to take me. Thank you very much. Where's my trophy? Right? What life and will is it talking about? It's the inventory, isn't it? The end result of living a life with seeming power. I have resentments, fears, and broken sexual relationships. That's what I bring to you. Now, when I sponsor guys, when we get to the third step, like he did with me, I say, are you ready to do the third step? And the guy looks at me and he says, no. I go, why not? He says, I have a problem with God. I look at him, I go, so do I. Let's pray. And then he says, well, I don't even believe in God. And I go, nobody really does. We're all just whistling in the dark, hoping for the best, you know. And I've run out of options, so what do you say we pray? You know. Isn't that awful? You know? Now, I will discuss the concept of God with you, because the God problem is we create a God and then don't believe in it. Isn't that what we do? And sponsors say things like he said to me, he says, I don't believe in the God you don't believe in either, which is really confusing. You know, you mean there's different ones? Evidently, you know. I will discuss it with you in my backyard in a place we call the ashram, because we smoke cigars and we talk about God and we do fifth steps and stuff back there in the ashram. When you've been sober a while and you really want to talk about it, I will do that. But I'm not going to spend a few months helping you work through the third step. It's like, I'm not going to do that. I've tried that before. Doesn't really work. And it's your way of not wanting to do the inventory. And the reason you don't want to do the inventory is because it's closer to 9 and you're not going to pay back the money. You know? So I write out this inventory, right? And I share it with this stranger. I do the fifth step. I write this out. And what's the lesson in the inventory? The spiritual pillar, the second pillar of spiritual condition in the inventory is I have to stop blaming other people and institutions for my problems. High school is over, right? Because in that fourth column of the resentment list, which is what we're looking for, is what are my faults and mistakes? It doesn't really say my part, although there very well may be a part. But what are my faults and mistakes? That's what we're looking for. I have to stop the blaming. High school's over. And if you surround yourself with some relatively healthy people in AA, including people you're getting sober with, they will help you stop the blaming. This is going to take a while because it's a part of who I am. This is part of my personality, is who I'm angry at and who I hate and who put me where I am today. That's how the alcoholic life seems like the only normal one. You can't take responsibility for your own behavior. It has to be someone else's fault. And we're really good at doing that. I had on my first inventory the entire federal government and specifically the Department of Motor Vehicles. You know, who the hell are they to tell me whether I can drive or not? Right? Then we get to 8 and 9. These people that I have resentments towards, you want me to go make amends to them in order to rid myself of the resentment, and I am not doing that. I mean, that makes no sense to me, and it scares the hell out of me. You know, I just don't want to do it. But I make the list, and I start the process. I go ahead and I do it anyway. I think this is where a lot of people drift away. It's like if you ever talk to somebody that's been sober a while, they hear you do this little rant, and they come up and they say, can we talk? And you ask them, have you done the work? Have you done? Oh, yes, I've done the work. Have you made amends? Well, I'm making living amends. What that means is, no, I have not made the amends. You know. Do we make living amends? Oh, yes, we do. But if you ask somebody, have you made the amends, and they don't say, yes. If you've made the amends, you have an answer for that. It's very clear. You know, it needs no qualification at all. I can't meditate. My mind's too busy. Have you made the amends? Maybe that'll slow it down. You know, this is when the transformation happens. When I go to somebody that I don't ever want to see again and I look them right in the eye and I say the words, when I turn and walk away from that experience, I am changed right then and there. No waiting. This is a cathartic experience. I hated my father, which is one of the requirements to be an alcoholic. You have to hate your parents. If you come to me and say you don't hate your parents, I don't believe you. They're the first ones to get in the way of the fun. I mean, and some of them are really awful. I mean, it's really true, you know. And but I went to him and I took. This is a man who's sober a long time. It was his 70th birthday, and I said to him after a little party we had, and I said, "Come on in the other room. I need to talk to you." And he looked at me and says, "You don't need to do this." And I said, "You better than anybody know that I do. Get in the room." You know? That's true. And he did. We went in there. It made him really nervous because he'd never done this. All this stuff we talk about in this AA of today, all the big book stuff, all this stuff, maybe started seriously in the 70s. You know, not much of this was going on in the 50s and 60s. There were pockets, but Joe and Charlie really helped. You know. Chuck Chamberlain helped, and from him came Sandy Beach. You know. In 1985, when he had me sit in his living room, I was one of the first guys that he ever did that with, sat and read the book with. I told him, you know, these guys I'm sponsoring aren't doing it. And he looked at me and goes, "You're my first." It's like, really? You know. But he had to cobble it together. Nobody sat down and read the book with him, and he cobbled it together. Other people started talking about it, and here we are today. I think we're alive and well and as effective as we've ever been. You know, some of us have gone over the deep end. You know, like counting the commas and how many musts and all that. And, you know, but what the hell? The worst thing that's happened, there's a whole bunch of people reading the book and working the steps, right? And we can argue about how they're doing it, but we can't argue the fact that they're doing it. You know, so we're all on the same team, aren't we? What's the lesson in the 9th step? The 3rd pillar of spiritual condition. Nothing was ever personal. And what's one of the indicators of somebody that's selfish and self-centered? Everything is personal. It's all happening to me. The only time I'm ever concerned about how you feel is when how you feel impacts me. I am not sensitive to you. I have no empathy. And everything's personal. And it's not. None of it was ever personal. When I made amends to my father, I went out in the car and I started sobbing and I couldn't stop. It was like something reached inside me. I had a physical experience after doing that. I had one of those experiences that we have, that we try to explain away, right? What was that? And I started looking at him as a person as compared to this character of what I thought he should have been instead of who he was. He was never focused on me. He was just being who he was. The story that I told was not correct. Sandy Beach used to say, there's my story and then there's what really happened, you know. And in the 9th step, we start painting a new picture. Things get presented. Now, you can hide from that if you want, because it's not necessarily pleasant. There comes a time in this path where you stand there and you say to yourself, oh my God, it's me. It was never them. It's me. This is not a pleasant moment. Self-awareness without humor is depression. And Alcoholics Anonymous does a really good job of helping us laugh at who we think we are. Not who we are, but who we think we are. And 1 through 9 is about 10%. It's not the work. It's the bare minimum. It's Sober 101. It's the first semester. It's the work that we have to do to prepare ourselves for the real work. 10, 11, and 12 is 90% of the program. I used to say 85. I've upped it. And in the 10th step is the fourth pillar of spiritual condition. Self-awareness as compared to self-obsession. Making amends in the present moment. I'm walking down the street, I step on your foot, I turn around and say, I'm sorry, excuse me. I don't have to go to the Alano Club, share at the noon meeting, write 3 pages of inventory, talk to 3 or 4 other people, track you down 3 weeks later, and then make amends. I get it. I'm starting to get it now. Whenever I'm disturbed, it's always me. Doesn't mean you're innocent, but whenever I'm disturbed, it's always me, because you're responsible. I've lived my life. You're responsible for how I feel and how I behave. If you didn't do the things you did, I wouldn't be forced to correct you. So you're responsible for my anger. If you didn't say the things and do the things you did, I would not be angry. You're responsible for my emotional nature. And then my reaction to what you've done is your fault also. Acid test. How well is that working for you? Right? It wasn't working well for me. Not at all. Well into sobriety. In the 11th step, you can watch yourself think. In meditation, you can watch yourself think. This is a game-changing experience. You can focus your mind on the breath coming in and out of your nose. And the ego that carries within it the persona that you've created, it's created of who you are, which may or may not be real. Mostly it's not, I think, but it carries within it your persona that needs to be protected and defended. It does not like being in the present moment. There's nothing for it to do. It wants to be in the future or in the past where it can work on stuff. It's not the enemy. It's not trying to hurt me. We say things like, my head's out to get me. The ego needs to be crushed, smashed, killed, because that's who we are. Let's lay waste to the countryside, It's not the enemy. It's part of who I am. It creates nothing. It just takes credit for stuff, right? It takes the past and projects it into the future over and over and over again. It wanders away from the breath because it doesn't like being in the present moment, and you notice it has moved away and you gently bring it back. Whoa. There must be something else within me other than that consciousness. Or I couldn't catch it. If that's who I am, I couldn't catch it. This is proof that evidently this thinking mind of mine is not who I am. It's not the essence of my being. There may be another consciousness within me that can actually watch that operate. When that becomes real and through exercise, through practice, evidently I don't have to go where it wants to take me. I was walking on my street the other day and it came up with this creepy thing I did when I was 9 years old. I stopped in the middle of the street and I said out loud, really? You want to think about that? I am not 9 years old and I'm not sure that even really happened. But I'm not going to go there. Thanks for sharing. I know you're trying to help, but I'm just going to move on with my day now. Used to have anxiety attacks at night. I'd wake up one time, I took myself to the emergency ward. I thought I was having a heart attack. So now what happens when that happens to me is I lay there in bed and I just focus on my breath, and the next thing I know, it's morning. I don't know what it's about. I don't need to know what it's about. I don't need to know the root cause of it. I need to know it's not real. This is the delusion that they talk about that we have. And I know some people suffer from stuff I don't suffer from. I don't suffer from depression, but I get depressed. Sometimes the appropriate emotional response is depression. Maybe we're not broken when we're depressed. Maybe there's something going on. It's like when I feel guilt or shame, it's because I've usually been guilty or shameful. Maybe it's not a problem in and of itself. I know that's not true for some people, but for me, it's certainly like that. I don't have to go where it wants to take me. Now, the final pillar, the final pillar. This is a big one because I don't know that I don't have it. The other ones, I'm not stupid. I may be, there's some of you out there, including me, that you may very well be an asshole, but I bet you don't want to be. You might be that person, but nobody really wants to be like that. I don't want to be arrogant and pompous. I'm just trying to get close to you, and I don't know how. So I try and impress you. But slowly, that seems to be dying away. Slowly, I've gotten to the point where I can look myself in the mirror and like what I see. You're not such a bad guy, Bill. I think you're okay. A little bit overweight, kind of chunky. You got old, dude. You're kind of saggy, but I think you're okay, Isn't that something? That's hard for some of us to do that. You ever tried? Somebody told me to go do that when I was new, and I looked in the mirror and I couldn't look myself in the eyes. I didn't like who I was. And today that's not true. A lot of that has gone away. But the thing that's missing in me that never developed is compassion. I don't have compassion. And I don't know that I don't have it. I'm looking for it now. And isn't what you and I walked into when we walked into Alcoholics Anonymous was compassion? Weren't you a little bit suspicious of people being nice to you for no apparent reason? I was a little suspicious. I would go to my sponsor and say, I don't think these friendships are real. And he looked at me and said, no, they're probably not, and walked away. See, you can't talk me into being aware, 6 years ago, I had a liver transplant. I almost died at 30-some years sober. And when you're in the liver department at Cedars-Sinai, they never ask you who these people are that are in your room, because you're in the liver department, right? And who else is down the hall? The other alcoholics that are trying to stay alive, right? So they know who these people are. The nurses would just come in and shove people out of the way and do it. It was really cool. But you came there to see me. You came to say goodbye. You came to love on me. And I felt myself be resistant to that love. Isn't that interesting? As long as I was sober, You can tell how spiritual you are if you're surrounded by people that love you and you're able to feel and accept that love. Sometimes that's hard for us. Sometimes it's easier for us to be loving and be kind. There's almost a power position in that. But what about when you're on the other side and they're coming to help you? After I got out of the hospital, I lived, by the way, and I got out of the hospital, I'm at home and I'm on a walker. I couldn't walk, and I didn't want to go to the meeting on a walker. I didn't want to be the old guy on the walker in the meeting. And Karen says, come and get him out of the house. He's got to go, gee, I'm sick of him, it's like, and so Steve Lamb and some of the boys came and got me and loaded me in the truck and took me to the club, and then I get out and I get my walker and I'm walking, but I forgot something. I get to be the center of attention. And there is not enough attention in the universe to satisfy me. So they clear a path for you and they put a little cushion in your chair and they set you down. Man, I can't wait to get back next week and be the center of attention again, Then after a while, then you pretend like you're crippled and you're not really, and No. So compassion, and I know my time's up here. I want to leave you with something. There comes a time in our recovery where he or she stands in front of us and says, you're not emotionally available for me. I've had that experience at around 10 years sober. You're not emotionally available. And I stand there and I look at you and I say, what the hell are you talking about? I'm standing right here because I don't get it. I don't get what you're trying to tell me. And what you say when you're saying that, what the delusion is that I've got something you want and I'm withholding it. The truth is worse. I don't have it. And I don't know that I don't have it. You've convinced me that I've got it, and I'm helping you look for it. And this dance is going to go on forever. And what I've learned in sobriety is, where is this compassion? How do we learn this compassion? What's the mechanism that's used for us to practice these principles in all our affairs? Working with others. Working with others. At a year sober, I started sponsoring people because that's what he told me. That's what we do. And I didn't know that some of you weren't doing this. I thought, this is what we do. This is part of the deal. Plus, it was intriguing. And I started working with you, and my motivation was totally impure. I want to look good. You know how they tell you go do something kind for somebody, then don't tell anybody? I don't know that I've ever accomplished that. I figure if you don't know about it, it didn't really happen. I want some credit, and I'm emotionally immature. But I fell in love with you, is what happened. You invited me into your life, and I went. And sometimes it was scary. Sometimes I didn't. You know how some people say, well, sponsorship is limited. There's some things we can't. I didn't get raised by that. You just go and you let them all in. Let them all in. Don't control the experience. Is it inconvenient? Absolutely, it's inconvenient. I think we need to be inconvenienced. I'm watching TV, you call. I have a choice to make. Do I answer the phone? Mostly, yes, I do. I've done that for a long time, and it changed my life, and I fell in love with you. I have relationships today I couldn't imagine 30 years ago, how close these relationships are. So the ultimate spiritual truth about compassion, they say that you've got to give it away to keep it. No. You have to give it away to even get it. That's how you get it. The it that you're looking for is much more than not drinking. But AA's real stickler about that not drinking part, isn't it? That seems to be a key component of the equation. But what I've received here is a hell of a lot more than that. Thank you so much for having me here this weekend.